One of the things that came in vogue in the hyper low inventory market that we had, say through the spring of 2022. So the hyper low inventory is 2021 and earlier. One of the things that came into vogue is that there were sellers who said, look, buyer, I don't want to have to close on the sale of my home, say the sale of my home in Colorado, unless I can find something to buy as a replacement property. And just to make it easier for us to keep this straight, we'll imagine that that replacement property is in Arizona. And so contracts were written saying seller's obligation to close on the sale of the property that you have listed in Colorado is contingent upon the seller of the Colorado home finding and going under contract to buy something in Arizona. Smart listing brokers of the Colorado property understood, well, just finding and something going under contract in Arizona isn't good enough for my seller client. And sellers had so much clout in the low inventory market that there were contracts written that said the Colorado seller's obligation to close on the sale of the seller's property was contingent upon the seller of the Colorado property closing on the purchase of the replacement property in Arizona. And that left the buyer of the Colorado property strung out a long time, maybe until the day of closing on the purchase of the Colorado property. Well, now the market's different. This is being recorded in the fall of 2022, and buyers have more clout, and buyers want to have provisions in these replacement property conditions that say, hey, look, seller, we'll let you have a replacement home contingency, but if you're not under contract by this date, we get to kick you out of this deal. And that doesn't mean the buyer of the Colorado property must kick the seller of the Colorado property out of the deal. It just gives the buyer leverage to do so. So can you write replacement home contingencies that create milestones that the seller of the Colorado property must be under contract to buy a replacement property by such and such a date, and the seller of the Colorado property must keep the buyer of the Colorado property informed about how things are going in Arizona? And the answer is yes. Not only can you do it, those of you who have our clause library and addenda package have access to such a replacement home contingency. That's exactly how a replacement home contingency reads when the seller's obligation to close on the Colorado property is conditioned upon that seller closing on the replacement property. It has milestones built into it requiring the seller of the Colorado property to keep the buyer informed about how things are going in Arizona. And if the milestones aren't met, if the Colorado seller isn't under contract to buy something in Arizona by such and such a date, then the Colorado buyer can bail if they feel like it. Keep that in mind in your toolbox. Have tools to put deals together. And remember, we live in a complicated world. Be careful out there.